Hey guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Happy NBA tip off. We got basketball back. Keenan, I can't wait to hear the TNT music, see our friends Ernie, Chuck, everybody, man. It's gonna be I'm just happy the season's here. So happy NBA tip off day, man.
Yeah, it's like Christmas to me, man. It's like when you're a little kid and you're like waiting the whole night before. You're like, I want this to start so bad, and it starts today. I'm super excited about it.
Guys, make sure you go and follow Keenan on Twitter. I have his handle there. He covers the Texas Longhorns for Orange Bloods and Rivals, and just a whole bunch of great basketball content on his account, as well as being a very talented writer and musician. So, check out Keenan. He's got a lot going on, but we are here to nerd out over some hoops right now because we've got some future bets for you guys. Your boy's sponsored by BUSR, so we about to really go in right now with these odds, but also some interesting storylines and things we'll be paying attention to throughout the season. The NBA offseason was in full effect with so much going on off the court, but there's also some really interesting storylines going on the court that we'll cover. And while you're here, it's free to show love. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us grow the platform. I appreciate it. And, I mentioned BUSR before. All of our odds are coming from the BUSR Sportsbook. And they are the official sponsor of official sportsbook, official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. So hit up BUSR.com/Fanatic, promo code Sports100FP, 100% free play match on all initial deposits up to $1,000 first 24 hours there. We are giving out 25 free casino chips, tons to take advantage of. But all of our odds that we're discussing today, we are pulling from the BUSR site. Now, Keenan, I want to start off with yours, because these futures bets every year, we have a lot of fun with them. Are you an emotional future bettor, or is there what's your rhyme or reason? Because I know some of the ones you got, and these are some of the guys you love, but how are you getting to your rationale here?
Well, I'd like to brag on myself real quick first. So last season, college basketball, I put $50 on Kansas to win the national title November 9th at plus 1650. So when that hit, I cashed $825 off a $50 bet. So futures bets are kind of the way for me to recoup some of those losses when, the Chargers don't cover against the Broncos or whatever else. You know what I mean? Any Thursday night football game that I've watched and suffered through. But yeah, I mean, there's three bets I really like for MVP this year. The first is my guy. It's Luka Doncic, Dallas Mavericks. I'm born and raised in Dallas, so big Mavericks fan. But I think Doncic's issue in the past has been he hasn't come into the season in shape. He's had slow starts, but he played basketball all summer this year in the was it FIBA or whatever the Euro Cup was. So he played all summer. Yeah. The Euro Cup. So he played all summer, and he's made it a point apparently to really stay in shape. So if he can come into the season hot, start off putting up big numbers, Mavs finish with a top 3, maybe even 4 seed, I could see his winning it. I think he's probably the favorite right now, maybe him and Embiid. Which leads me to my next guy, which is Joel Embiid, who is plus 540. Doncic was plus 420. So Embiid is plus 540. Probably maybe the smartest bet here because that Philly is going to be good this year. Also Jalen Brunson, whether or not they're going to be as competitive as they were last year. But Embiid plus 450 for MVP. He arguably deserved it last year, but Jokic was just the advanced stats were absolutely crazy for Jokic last year. I mean, so were the regular stats. But so I think Embiid might win it this year, finally get his first, because he was very deserving of it last year as well. And then my long shot MVP is Kawhi Leonard at plus 2,200. So if you think about it, that's a $50 bet to win $1,100. Long shot, but The question is going to be injury for him, obviously, longevity. He's a good enough player to win the MVP, and he plays for a team that I think could compete to win the title, and a team that I think is going to win the West this year. So plus 2,200 seems like pretty solid odds on Kawhi Leonard to win the MVP. The question is whether he plays enough games or if he can avoid the injury bug.
Yeah, the games for me are interesting with Kawhi. We know what he is capable of. I think a lot of people forget about the end of his, it's hard for me to say this as a Spurs fan because I hate Uncle Dennis. But the end of his tenure with the San Antonio Spurs and what he did the 1 year in Toronto, which is not that long ago, right? And even some of the things he showed when healthy in the playoffs against the Mavericks, right? I mean, Kawhi is still one of them dudes. And I think where will be interesting is how the load is shared. I mean, Paul George has already said he is, he's fallen back to be that number 2 guy. I think Paul George's stock is really interesting this year just to look at overall. And then the return of John Wall to the NBA, right? And
yeah,
what type of like if he's the guy that we saw in Washington, even towards the end with Bradley Beal, I mean, that's a tremendous basketball team, especially with what he'll have supporting him. So, and we know Tyronn Lue is one of the better coaches in the game today. So,
definitely.
The Kawhi bet is interesting.
Very. Yeah, that kind of leads me to one of my overs. I have Clippers over 52.5 wins, which is a lot. That's a risky bet, but I love the John Wall acquisition. I think that's absolutely massive for a team that really needed some pure point guard play. I mean, they have Reggie Jackson as well. But, I mean, if you think about it, they have Kawhi, Paul George. They have Zubats, right? He's still there, I believe.
Yeah, Big Z's
and then
still
they
there.
have Morris. Yeah, and then they have Morris, Covington, and Batum as well. That's a really deep roster, and even Luke Kennard will probably get some minutes as a shooter.
Luke Kennard some love.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the Clippers have as deep a roster as anybody in the NBA, and I think they're going to clear 52.5 wins. I think they're going to get to 53 probably. My guess would be like 56, 57.
Best record potentially in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
Competing with Phoenix and Golden State and those guys. I know you have a few more. Some other hot ones for since let's just go into regular season win. Actually, do you want to do regular season wins? Well, let's just do it since you already started, and then I'll kind of go into mine too. But keep going.
Yeah, for sure. I have Nets under 51.5 wins. They have KD, they have Kyrie, but their front court is kind of weak. And the East is really strong. Cleveland upgraded big time. Toronto's always tough. They have Nick Nurse, and then they have Scotty Barnes. They have Pascal Siakam. And then you have to deal with Boston. You have to deal with Philly. You have to deal with Milwaukee. It's tough sledding in the East. And I think that the Nets are kind of directionless. As you said before we started the show, a lot of ISO motions from last year. We'll see if their new offensive coordinator can figure it out. But I think 51.5 wins, I think you take the under on that just because I don't know what team you're going to get when you see the Nets.
And then you have 3 teams out west: Lakers, Kings, Mavs.
Yep. So I have Lakers under 45.5 wins, and they'll have Davis back, but I'm just not betting on Davis playing most of the season. He hasn't done it. He's just been injured so much, especially last year. And I love Anthony Davis. I think he's a great player when he's healthy. And I love LeBron. I'm a huge LeBron guy, but there's just not a lot of help. And Westbrook was really bad last year. I mean, he gets a lot of flack on Twitter, and I don't like how disrespected he's been because he's such a formerly great player. But, their only hope is to move him for a guy that can space the floor. They need some shooting there. They don't really have any shooters. I mean, Reeves is okay, I guess. I mean, he's pretty good, but he's not a guy you can play 30 minutes a game who can shoot the whole time. So I think that the under on 45.5 wins is probably a fairly safe bet there as well.
I have a question
And
about
then
the Lakers.
Yeah, sure.
Is there any way they pull off? Like they've got to be. I mean, I know they're one of these teams that's out there in terms of a trade. A team that's open for business. Contractually, it's really tough. With Russ's 47 million or whatever he opted in at, whatever that number is. You can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But there's been talk about, hey, the Pacers kind of going later into this episode of Tankapalooza, right?
Yeah.
But how do they offload like a Buddy Hield and a Miles Turner, guys like that? Could there be something in play? Do you think the Lakers are able to make any type of move, especially to get more shooting on their team?
They're going to have to attach some picks wherever they trade Russ, and they're going to have to get I don't know, man. It's really hard to trade that contract with how bad Westbrook was last year. I mean, he was just completely off. His shooting was really bad. His splits were not great. I mean, the thing is, Russ, people love him or hate him. People will come out to see him. People will tune in to watch him. So whether it's a jersey sales move, I don't know. I don't know what trades are available to the Lakers at this point that would help them a lot. I think they're kind of in trouble. That's kind of my guess. I mean, maybe if they could trade for Buddy Hield, that would be a great trade. I just don't know that it would. I don't know, man. It's hard to.
They would have to get
contract.
They would have to get a third team involved or potentially do some sort of 3 or 4 way deal. I think that's the only way to make everything make sense. I don't think that the Lakers are in a position right now to get exactly what they need to be able to move the Russ money with one other trade partner. I don't see that unless
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, unless Russ just starts the season phenomenal and then they sell high. I mean, what else do you do? Right. Anyway, I'll let you keep going with your teams.
Yeah, so I got 2 more that I like. I like Kings over 33.5 wins. You'll talk about Keegan Murray a little later, but I really like that pick. I think he fills an immediate need at power forward. And I like De'Aaron Fox. I think he's paid a lot, but I think nationally he's kind of underrated because Sacramento is kind of a small market. But I like them over, and they have Sabonis as well, and so I think that the Kings are probably going to go over 33.5 wins. I think they're they might even make the playoffs, maybe the play-in. I don't know. I just think the Kings are starting to finally turn it around after missing on Doncic and drafting Bagley, which if you look at the Kings subreddit. Every time Luka goes off, every post is like, "Oh my God, what did we do?" It's really some Schadenfreude if you don't like the Kings for whatever reason.
Kings Twitter Spaces during the Tyrese Halliburton trade was legendary.
Oh yeah, that still confuses me to this day. That trade. I mean, Halliburton is such a productive player, and it seemed like he liked to be in Sacramento too, and he just traded him. I don't understand, man. But my last pick is my homer pick. I think Mavs go over 48.5 wins, man. I know that's confusing losing Brunson, but 2 words, man, front court, or maybe it's 1 word, depending on what Microsoft Word will tell you. But Christian Wood and JaVale McGee. Now, McGee is only good for about 18 minutes a game, but Christian Wood is doing – I watched a couple of their preseason games, and he was doing things that Mavericks centers haven't done in years. They've had no front court for a long time. I mean, they have Maxi Kleba, who's a good player, but he's more of a 4 than a 5. I think it's really important that they got Christian Wood. I mean, he's on an expiring too, so he's probably going to try to have a big year statistically. He's a big lob threat for Luka, and I just think their front court is greatly improved. They get Tim Hardaway Jr. back, so that's a big scoring option off the bench. And then I think Spencer Dinwiddie can handle some of those ball handling duties that Brunson did. And hopefully they do what they did last year where they run 3 ball handlers at once when they have, or maybe not ball handlers, 3 guards at once. Because last year they would have Luka, Dinwiddie, and Brunson all on the floor at the same time. I'm thinking they can do Luka, Dinwiddie, and Tim Hardaway Jr.
So this bet really runs with this bet you did, right? Because if let's say that the Mavericks are a 50 game winner, right? So they'll probably be around that 4-5 hole range in the West, which is kind of where they were before. But like you said, that was with Jalen Brunson and a little bit more offensive firepower. That would definitely speak to Luka taking that next step. You know, there's been a lot of criticism with how he starts his seasons, his body kind of being like how Shaq used to be, playing himself into shape. Now Luka moved a lot in the offseason, and I think there's 2 things with Luka, knowing his natural competitiveness that he's gonna want to try to address. A, like we talked about, just how he's starting the season and getting into flow, and B, his shooting. I think if the shooting can get a little bit more consistent, I actually think Luka has the potential to be a great shooter. I think shot selection with him can be a little wonky, and then his free throws have never been what they should be. He should be like with his mechanics, he should be over 80%. And I think it's more of just locking in and being consistent, because let's say he gets up to being an 80% or even a 78% free throw shooter, and now he's shooting at a 47-48% from the field type clip and raises that 3. I think he is your MVP.
Yeah,
I think that
efficiency.
is a good bet. So I like how your bets are married together. From my end, you mentioned my first guy earlier, Keegan Murray, plus 450 for Rookie of the Year. The reason why I kind of hone in on the Rookie of the Year bets is, quite frankly, I hit on Scotty Barnes last year before the season started. I think one of the biggest things to pay attention to is role, minutes, and just flat out opportunity for the player. And I see those things check out for Keegan Murray. Now, winning is a plus, and in the case of last year's race between him and Evan Mobley, both of them played on relatively good teams. I don't know this year's group. Paolo's definitely the favorite, right? But how good are the Magic going to be? Or is he just going to be, kind of like what Cade Cunningham was last year for Detroit, where the numbers are coming along, but how impactful are you? And then, some of the other guys, Chet, your boy Chet, let's I'm sorry, brother. Hopefully he's back up next year.
Poor guy.
Yeah,
for real.
Yeah, but I'm going Keegan Murray, Rookie of the Year, Sacramento Kings. I don't like all this Kings talk that we're having on my platform right now, because they're a horrible franchise. However, these numbers, you can't deny what we're seeing, right? Like, I think it's interesting. I think a couple other bets that are intriguing for Rookie of the Year. Benedict Mathurin from Arizona, just with his ability. And again, I think Indiana's going to move some people, because I think they're going to join the Tankathon. He's going to have opportunity, I think, down the end, like whenever this happens. Now, if it doesn't happen, then I think you could have a hold up there. So Mathurin right now on BUSR is plus, plus 670. And then after that, it really, really drops. You have guys like Shaedon Sharp from Portland at plus 2,300. he's a ridiculous athlete. I still don't know if he can play basketball or not. It's like very, very bizarre thing.
Yeah.
But people like that are interesting, right? Because he could be you hear people say crazy stuff about Shaden Sharp. He could be the next, baby T-back and all this, like a shorter T. Like you hear
Right.
crazy stuff about him. But I don't know, right? He didn't play basketball last year. For me, I think one other person I will mention is, since you got to do a homer pick, I'll do a homer pick, and I might throw a little change at this. Jeremy Sohan from out of Baylor last year, plus 3,700, and he will be a part of that Spurs lineup. You actually liked our pick of Sohan more than I did at the time when we picked him ninth. I've already fallen in love with the guy, quite frankly, Keenan. He's going to be awesome.
Hard worker. Yeah. Great defender.
Great defender. Can grow offensively, has some playmaking in him. A little bit more than
I can pass a little bit.
Yeah. So very, very interesting. Very, very interesting there. I have some bets out here, that things that make you go, How do you feel if I told you could get Evan Mobley plus 1,500 for Defensive Player of the Year? What say you, Keenan?
Oh, man. I think those are incredible odds for a guy that – I mean, you could give me those odds at had half those odds, and I'd probably take it. At plus 750, I'd probably take it. Because he's on a team also that has Jarrett Allen. So, the team defense is going to be really good. So even if he has a moment of weakness, he's not going to get exposed like other guys will. They play great team defense. They're going to be that team's going to be good this year too, with the addition of Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, man, I think those are killer odds for that bet. I'm surprised that they're that much of a long shot.
I will say this too about just the Cavs team as well. Donovan Mitchell being there, like you said, I mean, that's a big one from a standpoint of his stock was down, I think, after last year's playoff series against the Mavericks. And just really how he ended the season, the stuff going on with Rudy Gobert, and just really the implosion of the Utah Jazz. So him kind of getting back up and trying to, at one point, he was one of those young guys who was one of the first 2 or 3 names out your mouth when you were talking about how good they were in the NBA playoffs. So I'm curious to see what Spider Mitchell does. But in terms of best that make you go, Evan Mobley, Defensive Player of the Year, plus 1,500, something to pay attention to.
Definitely.
All right, I have another one that I think you're saying. I want to see your reaction on this. Back-to-back reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic, plus 920 for MVP this year. He's behind Giannis. He's behind Luka. He's behind Embiid. He's right in front of basically Jason Tatum. I know the NBA, I think the last it may have been Larry Bird. I don't even know if did Jordan win 3 MVPs in a row? I could look that up real quick. I know Bird did.
Yeah.
Very rare for somebody to win 3 MVPs in a row. What say you, Nikola Jokic MVP plus 920?
I think voter fatigue is going to work against him in this situation. I mean, LeBron James didn't even win 3 in a row, as far as I can recall. I think he's won 4 total.
He's won 4. He did not win 3 in a row.
He's won 4. Yeah. He didn't win 3 in a row. So, I mean, the year that Rose won it, arguably LeBron should have won it that year. But that's kind of an indication that they're not going to give the guy. It's like winning the Heisman twice. I don't think you win the MVP 3 times in a row in the NBA anymore. I just think there's too much talent. So I would fade that pick, honestly. And although I do like where Denver's headed now that they have Jamal Murray back, they should be a really scary team in the West that could finish top 2, top 3 for sure. I mean, the top of the West is elite this year. It's really, really strong.
Last person to do it was Larry Bird, according to the and Gotti's staff and research here at Fanatic Perspective. Michael Jordan had back-to-back 90, 91, 91, 92. Charles Barkley won 92.
And then Malone won it? Oh, Barkley.
Malone won it 96, 97, squeezed in between
That's right.
Jordan winning 95, 96 and 97, 98. Then
Right.
Karl Malone won it again in 98, 99. So they kind of went boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But in terms of 3 consecutive MVP awards, Larry Bird. Now, LeBron James won 4 in 5 years, with the Derrick Rose year being in between 2 and 2.
Yeah, that's insane.
So, that's insane with 2 different teams.
That's wild, dude.
But something again, things that make you go,
Yeah.
Let me see. I have one more. I was going to do Jason Tatum plus 1175, but I think we'll save that one for later with the storyline we'll talk about with involving Boston. But one more bet that I have that I don't even think I even prepped you for, but I'm curious to get your reaction.
Sure.
Is a regular season wins bet for a team that had some success last year in the playoffs and now is getting back a particular potential superstar, however you want to classify it. Pelicans over under 44.5 wins. What say you?
Man, that's tough. It all is going to depend on Zion. I mean, Brandon Ingram is really good, and they have McCollum now too. So they have a lot of offensive firepower. I think that 44.5 is going to come down to whether Zion can play the season or not. Right now, I would that division's tough too, man, with the Mavericks and Memphis and well, I guess the Rockets and the Spurs aren't that great. But
Rockets and Spurs going to take their pants off. So there's going to be some wins.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, you know what? I like the over on that, actually. Now that I think about it, they're going to get a few games like that, a few kind of weaker teams in the conference. I mean, they're going to have to deal with the Mavericks and Memphis, but I think that, yeah, I like that, especially if Zion plays well. I mean, I could see there being even like a 5 seed. So, yeah, I would take the over on that. I like that a lot.
I like this bet. I like their team. I like Herb Jones, that young little small Puerto Rican guy, Pitbull, Alvarado or whatever his name is, that harasses people. Like they've got like all these like role playing guys and pieces. I like the Pelicans if I can get like if Zion's body, hopefully his body's not lying to us.
Yeah.
That's my. I mean, I'm not a Pelicans fan by any means, but these young players, we want to see them play. We want to see them,
of course,
reach their potential. And I know Zion is still one of those guys. So I think people are, as we've seen Ja Morant ascend in the league, we want to see that for Zion as well.
Yeah.
Let's go on the storylines a little bit. Because I can tease bets all day. I'm putting money on Trae Young plus 1150 for scoring champion. But I'll dive into that one later. But storylines. First off, the Suns. Can they bounce back, Keenan?
I don't think so, man. I think that Mavericks game 7 like thoroughly broke them. And the owner stuff on top of it, that owner who's not a good guy, dude is not a good guy, terrible guy. So I think there's issues with Ayton too. They might try to move Ayton because he had issues with Monty. Chris Paul is just one of those guys that he's just old, man, and he old for the NBA, not old in general, but
he wears on guys though.
He breaks down as the season goes on. He just does, and it was evident in that Mavericks series. He did not play well that whole series. He really didn't. And the others, he was like okay, and he was really bad in Game 7. So I think the Suns will probably win a lot of regular season games, but I don't see there being a team that makes the finals or even the Western Conference Finals this year. I think that Mavericks series really got to them mentally.
This is where guys like Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, and even, just the coaching staff, right? We all have great respect for Monty Williams and what they've built. They were a great story watching them kind of rise out of the bubble. But I think we'll learn a lot about some of these guys long term of who they are as players. Of if you're just a guy that can only supplement a championship team, or even Ayton. And I've said this to folks. I know I don't talk. We're going to talk a lot more basketball on this channel, but DeAndre Ayton is so talented to me, and he has not been allowed to showcase his gifts offensively. He has been asked to be a role guy, especially as a screen and roll element, limited touches. They don't really let him dribble. There's so much more to his game offensively that he is capable of and that he can do, that he has to be force fed by one Chris Paul. And this has been a thing with big men. Look, Tyson Chandler, even going back to his days, New Orleans Hornets days, he wanted Tyson Chandler to be a certain way and feed him a certain way. He did the same thing with DeAndre Jordan, and he was trying to do it with Blake Griffin, and Blake Griffin wasn't having it, right? But then he basically didn't. He wanted to have DeAndre Jordan play a certain way. He wants DeAndre Ayton to play a certain way, and I think as much as he did for Ayton's confidence early on, especially that run to the finals where Ayton was really, really good offensively and defensively, he hasn't been allowed to grow. He just hasn't. And if they're not going to give him any type of freedom, or they're going to yell at him every time he puts the ball on the floor, then I'd like to see him go to another team as well. And even things out. There's more to his game than just being, a lob threat around the bucket.
Definitely.
So
he's got touch for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at some of these guys, like how Evan Mobley's getting used, and some of these other guys around the league. They're allowed to do. They have a little bit more freedom as a big. The next thing, what is the Lakers this year? Is this just the year we get to see LeBron pass? Is he going to pass Kareem this year? He's pretty close, right? And so, what are they, just a spectacle, or do they make moves? Sounds like you don't believe in it at all. We already talked about this on the over and under. I think I'm there with you. We don't have to go into the Lakers again, but we will go into their rival, the Boston Celtics. You have some to me, you go into your Boston take, because I think it's kind of a hot take. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think Boston is probably the best team in the NBA. I think that they could. They're my pick to. They're my pick to come out of the East. I think the addition of Malcolm Brogdon was huge, and I think Ime Udoka is a really good coach. But I think his replacement is pretty good too, whose name escapes me at the moment, which is very embarrassing.
Joe
But
Mazzulla.
I think yeah. So I think Boston is going to be as good as they were last year, plus Brogdon. And the team defense they play, you just add in another guy who can defend on the perimeter like Brogdon can. I mean, they're just so good, man. They're so good defensively. Marcus Smart is so good defensively. Jason Tatum is so good on the perimeter. Robert Williams is so good in the post. I just really believe in that system that they're running. And I think that, it's funny. People were giving a lot of flack to Brad Stevens when they moved him to GM. He kind of failed upward, but I think he's doing a good job. And I think that some of that system that he implemented is still around. And I think it's just a culture thing in Boston. And I think even losing their head coach, it might affect them at the beginning of the season, but I think they'll get into a swing of things with Missoula, and I think that they'll be there at the end of the season. I think it's them and the Clippers are the two scariest teams to me, depending on they have the two highest ceilings, I should say, because the Warriors are the Warriors.
All right. I think this if you believe this, then you have to almost start to buy into guys like Jason Tatum at plus 1175 for MVP, right? Or making all
Sure.
NBA team again. Because
Sure.
there has to be a chip on their shoulder. I mean, especially I'm focusing on Jason Tatum in particular because he was disappointing in the NBA finals. I think some of it has gotten overblown. However, he did not play as well as he could have. And their propensity to turn the basketball over as a team, hopefully that's an area where Malcolm Brogdon can really improve them
Yeah.
and help them out because it was ridiculous. And it wasn't anything, Golden State was good defensively, but it wasn't anything to where it was really carelessness, not having good handle, and just being, reckless with their passing. I mean, Jason Tatum, I want to see him take the next step as a playmaker. He's showing strides of hitting, when he's, dribble pass to the corner, but he has to be even stronger at the point of attack with the basketball and stronger finishing around the rim. If he can do those things, Boston has everything else you're looking for NBA champion. They were right there last year.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting though. Milwaukee Bucks at plus 650. The team people keep sleeping on. Chris Middleton, if not for his absence, they're probably back in the finals.
Sure.
So I'm not willing to give up on Milwaukee. I'll give you a storyline that I'll be following, though. The Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
They were a hot mess this offseason. Hot mess express, owner on down. You mentioned the offensive coordinator they got from Europe coming in under Steve Nash to try to rebuild or structure this offense better so it's not so ISO heavy. We heard the criticism from Goran Dragic at the end of the Boston series last year. And now they are bringing in one Ben Simmons, who we did not see play for them last year post the James Harden trade to Philadelphia. I do think Ben Simmons can help them in a lot of ways if he's at all engaged. He's still a very good defensive player. He's still a guy who's very difficult to contain athletically getting to the rim. And that there's a lot of ways can complement KD and Kyrie, especially for what they were lacking in that Boston series. For me with Brooklyn, I actually like their front court a little bit more than you do. My question is, what do I get from them mentally? Like even my guy TJ Warren is over there. Like,
yeah.
If I get any of the bubble stuff, which I know that guy's probably long gone, but like there's just so much what if with Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They're plus 720 NBA title odds. I might be with you on the under on the 51.5, but just because you go under there, as we saw from Golden State last year, only won 53 games, you can still get hot in the playoffs and win the championship. So Brooklyn is a team that I will definitely probably one of the most interesting teams in all the NBA this year to follow, because they could completely implode on themselves and everybody's asking for a trade by Christmas.
That's kind of what I think might happen. I hate to say it because I like Kevin Durant and I like to watch Kyrie play. I don't know if I like him as a guy, but Ben Simmons, they should just play him at the 5. They won't, but they should. He's a center to me. I mean, he could dribble, but he can't shoot at all. He doesn't even want to try. I don't know, man. It just seems like a bunch of egos that are just going to crash into each other and just, I don't know. They have the talent to compete. And like, I think Durant is a better leader than people give him credit for. But man, that's a lot of the island of misfit toys is kind of how I'm viewing Brooklyn. They just have a lot of pieces that I don't know how they work together, man. Is Blake Griffin there again, or did he go to Boston? Right? I think he went to
He's in
Boston.
Boston now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. We'll see. I guess I just think the Steve Nash experiment has kind of been a failure so far, and I mean, a couple of years ago they were 1 inch off the 3-point line from going to the NBA Finals. If Durant if his foot's an inch further back, they beat the Bucks and go to the finals, and I think definitely win. So they have the talent. They've already shown they have the talent. To me, it's a mental thing. Like, do they believe they can do it? Do they believe in each other? Will they be diving for loose balls? Will they be throwing charges? Just like the little fundamental stuff that makes an NBA champ. I don't know if they're good. I don't want to like doom them because it's not like I hate them or anything. I don't know, man. I'm just not sold.
I'm not either. I mean, I'm not either from a regular season standpoint. If they're not willing to experiment with Ben Simmons, if they're willing to experiment with Ben Simmons and put him in the mix of, like you said, playing center, being part of that front court with the Claxton, but also in the open floor, still allowing him to be a playmaker and a creator when he needs to.
Yeah.
And they're just more dynamic. And it can take some of that ease off of KD in the front court as well as Kyrie. Then I think you have something. But it's going to be really interesting to see there. Lastly, big storyline. Adam Silver. If you're Adam Silver, how are you defending the Victor Wembanyama, Take-A-Palooza, the Scoot Henderson, this draft that is coming? My Spurs, we're Team Tank, baby. We taking our pants off. Go look at our roster right now. Go look at what
it's not good.
Jazz are doing.
Yeah, I mean, this has always been a question of mine. I talked to one of my buddies who's a big NBA guy, and he had a radical idea for how to change the NBA draft. And basically, it was like you let the players pick where they want. Like, this would never happen, but you let the players come out of college and pick where they want to go. You go to a team in a smaller market that has spending less money and get a bigger contract, or you go play for a contender. That seems like it would be the only way to fix tanking, because I don't see any way to fix it. I mean, the lottery is about as good a way as you're ever going to get to help, help prevent it to an extent. But guys are still going to tank because outside of Wembanyama and Scoot, this is a really good class anyway. The Thompson twins are really good. Nick Smith from Arkansas, Dariq Whitehead from Duke, Keontae George from Baylor. I mean, there are some seriously talented guys that are coming up in this draft. So I think it's one of those drafts where even if you don't get the first overall pick, you get the 4th pick, you still end up with Nick Smith. I think you're pretty happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is when you have, it's one thing if there's one player and then there's drop off. But when you go back and even looking at the 2003 draft with LeBron James, right? The third pick was Carmelo Anthony. The 4th pick was Chris Bosh, right? And you get a Dwayne Wade, I think, at 5, right? You think about some of the talent that falls or slipped. Amon or Amon Thompson. That's a guy who I think he'd be right there with Paulo for number 1 if we were to do this.
Definitely.
If you said get rid of Wembanyama, get rid of Scoot and all this other stuff, like what's the dynamic there? When you watch him play, it's like, yeah, even if I tank and I don't get the number 1 pick, I'm still getting a potential franchise player at 4.
Totally.
So
yeah.
Why would I make any moves at the trade deadline to get better? Or why not start buying guys out, right? Like you're going to see a lot of this behavior in the NBA now, especially post-Christmas. So something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
This NBA season is going to be thrilling. I can't wait to see Rudy Gobert play next to Karl Anthony Towns and my dude Ant getting frustrated with these brothers when they being soft. You know, I want to see what that
Yeah.
looks like.
No, for sure. It's going to be interesting in Minnesota to see how they play 2 5s next to each other. Because I was telling you before, like, I mean, Towns has played 4, but like he's a 5, and Gobert's definitely a 5. And I think though having a guy like Gobert, like when I was helping you with your NBA fantasy draft, and I was like, try to get Towns because I think he's going to have a lot fewer responsibilities on the defensive end because of Gobert. He's going to have a lot more energy to expend on the offensive end. I mean, he's been doing that anyway. He's not really known as a defensive stud, really, but I just think that Minnesota could surprise some people this year. I think that they have 3 really, really good players, and I think Anthony Edwards is going to probably take that next step forward this season. And I mean, he did last season too. I mean, he's a unbelievable scorer, man. And like, I wasn't sold on him coming. That was such a weird draft. That was that 2019. LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards and James Wiseman. Was that 19?
I thought that was 2020.
20. Yeah, 20 then. Either way, I wasn't sold on any of the top guys in that draft that year. And like LaMelo and Anthony Edwards are ballers. And I think Wiseman will be really good once he's healthy again. I mean, he's just
Wiseman's looking better already now.
Yeah, and he'll be a great fit in that system. They need bigs. So yeah, I think Minnesota is gonna surprise some people this year. I wonder what their over under is on wins this year, but you know, given on what it is, I might take the over.
So Atlanta, my last one before we wrap.
Yeah.
I like Trae Young. I think this is going to be one of those where he'll be able to kind of play a little bit more off like Steph does, and maybe having these. I like the fact that his scoring stayed really high last year. His field goal percentage for the type of player that he is to be at 46% on the year, really really good.
Yeah.
I'm high on Trae Young this year. However, and I'm putting in the bet for PPG scoring champ.
Yeah.
We get my man DeJounte out of the Spurs, and Steven Jackson, he just continues to lie unprovoked on his podcast. That's another story for another day about people being trapped in the Spurs system as if we don't let people hoop. When we really you look at the players we've developed over the years, Kawhi Leonard and DeJounte himself, and the type of player that DeJounte is now.
And this guy named Tim Duncan.
Yeah.
And this guy named Tony Parker and this guy named Manu Ginobili. Those three.
There's beef there for other reasons, but he continues to lie unprovoked.
Yeah.
But anyway, DeJounte, who I love, and it was hard to see him go. However, we had to do what's in the best interest for our franchise. He's over there with Clutch Sports. He's got to do what's in the best interest for him financially, long term. But he looked like somebody who just got out of a very serious relationship this past summer and just was kind of being out there. DeJounte was outside this summer, for those who don't know. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now this brother's in Atlanta. And he's playing a very interesting role next to Trae Young. I'm really curious to see if we're going to get this babyface turn heel version of DeJounte, because he was out here bullying people in the summer.
In the Pro-Am? He literally was bullying dudes in a Pro-Am. I was like, what are you doing, dude? No, that's like why I think that it might be kind of a long shot for Trae to win points per game, be scoring champ, because I think Murray's going to get a lot of those offensive opportunities, because I think he wants his buckets, man. I think he's trying to score a lot too, and that's honestly Trae might score less but be a better player this year because he's going to have Murray next to him. Like, I don't think he's going to have to force as many shots. I mean, he was very efficient last year, but I feel like he'll be able to be even more efficient this year with Murray next to him. And yeah, man, I think that was a really excellent pickup by the Hawks. I think that was a really I knew that the Spurs were gonna move Murray, but I didn't know where. And I think the haul that the Spurs got was awesome. 3 first-round picks, I think is what you told me.
Mhm.
So that's a big deal. They're unprotected too, right?
I think there are. I think pretty much all of them. Yeah, I believe are all unprotected. One of them, there's like a certain clause to a certain year, but the
Yeah,
other last two are unprotected picks.
that's a big pickup. There,
And you know
so
how hard it
Atlanta's
is to come by
gambling.
unprotected picks in the NBA.
No kidding. So Atlanta's gambling pretty huge there, but I think they're in win now mode after making the ECF 2 years ago. So, and then not performing up to expectations this year. I think that they were like, it wasn't a panic move, but it was a let's get better right now move. And I think that, I wish the Mavericks had that same mentality, is basically what I'm saying.
Well, best of luck to your Mavericks this year, Keenan. I will say as a Spurs fan, it's going to sound weird and people are going to troll me right now. I am now a Mavericks season ticket holder since I live in the area and I want to see
Right.
NBA players. So
Sure.
I will be at
Makes
Mavs
sense.
games. Just I'm not going to be out here just being like bump Luca and all this type of stuff. I like Luca, but I'm there
Yeah.
to see the Ja Morants, the Zions, the young
Sure.
talent coming through, and just I always said growing up, a dream of mine was when I was able to, if I lived in any NBA city, I would be a season ticket holder to see the talent coming through
Sure.
because I was really fortunate as a child to attend many Wizards games and see guys like Reggie Miller and Allen Iverson and
Yeah.
very young LeBron James on Cleveland and Ray Allen when he was on Milwaukee Bucks and Big Dog and all these guys that were larger than life at the time. So
Sure.
Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, like I got to see everybody as a kid growing up. So now
That's
I'm going to be
awesome.
able to relive that as an adult. But Keenan, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Go ahead and promote yourself.
Oh man, Keenan Womack _OB on Twitter, and I've been writing for Orange Bloods for over a year now. I think it's been like 14 months. So just continuing to grind, and then I write about music for Buddy Magazine, which is a Texas-based Texas music magazine. So if you like reading album reviews, I write for them as well. So check that out too.
Dope, man. Well, hey, you guys will be able to see our Texas basketball video. We did, I can't have Keenan here and not ask the main source about what's going on with Texas hoops. So we will have that video coming out as well. Guys, all the odds we did today were from my sponsor, official sponsor, official sportsbook, official betting partner, Fanatic Perspective, busr.com/Fanatic. We are offering a 100% free play match on all initial deposits on there. So hit up busr.com/Fanatic. Use the promo code sports100FP. 100% free play match on all initial deposits within the first 24 hours, up to $1,000 plus 25 free casino chips to use. And yeah, I mean, what better time to take advantage of futures bets than right now? And even through the season, odds will adjust as we get started these first few weeks. But I was able to make some money on some odds even after the season started, kind of seeing where guys were the first couple of weeks. If you're hesitant or you want to see how Ben Simmons looks on Brooklyn or anything like that, still take advantage. Or if you're just looking for a great daily betting source, and a reliable partner, 24/7 customer service, can't think of anything better than BUSR. And obviously for our Horns family out there, second sponsor as well, Last Stand Hats, laststandhats.com/Fanatic Perspective. We have a promo code going on right now for Fanatic 10. So type in that promo code there you see on the screen. It's also been going on the ticker at the bottom, Fanatic 10, 10% off at checkout. Amazing hats. We have some Dallas merch coming at Last Stand Hats. We have other schools this week. Texas is playing in football, Oklahoma State. We have Oklahoma State merch, Pokes merch out there. So Last Stand Hats is just growing. It's a growing, apparel company. They do a tremendous job. Beautiful designs. So many people rock them at the games this past weekend against Iowa State. So Shout out to Mike Murphy and the guys over at Last Stand Hats. They're doing it great. LastStandHats.com/Fanatic Perspective, promo code Fanatic 10% off at checkout. Keenan, thank you again, brother, for coming on. I appreciate you. Y'all, if you make some money with us, let us know. If you miss, don't let us know. Other than that, Keenan, I appreciate you, brother. We out.